Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And it's so great to be in this virtual space with you all. Thank you. I'm going to start with the poems that I had published in the Alaska Quarterly Review. I have my issue here with me. This was summer and fall 2017. And the first poem of the two that were in here are about the in-between and growing up in the small-ish Northern California town of Vacaville, small by California standards, but probably not elsewhere. And I wrote about that space. The poem is called Pastoral with Restless Searchlight. And the epigraph tells us it's in Vacaville, California. I was raised with the ocean over my right shoulder and the jagged mountains filling my left hand with teeth, while overhead, the military jets drew their temporary scars. In this valley, I rocked myself like a marble at the bottom of a bowl. Then I gathered my skirt of drought, of failing plants. When I slept, the crop dusters laid down their thin quilt, and my life shortened, though barely. I counted my luck amongst the deer drawn down the hill by the prison's lights. I wanted to be like the dried grass alighting suddenly on a summer afternoon, a fire started by nothing but sun, a helicopter's oracle foretelling the blackened acre, like a hole cut into fabric behind which always breathes the tangible dark. I wanted to be like that, to swallow fences, to listen for the animals crossing over, the night's highway crowded with the footsteps of the anonymous. The other poem that I had published here in AQR was, it's interesting to look back on it because it was a timely poem of witness titled Poem to My Unborn Son, the morning after the election. Because this had come out in 2017, it was reflecting on the 2016 presidential election. And I've been thinking about since last year's 2020 election about how things have shifted in that time. And also if I were to rewrite this poem, what else would I say? But so that's the context that this poem was written in. And again, it's Poem to My Unborn Son, the morning after the election. Since November began, the painters have been here, stirring their mixtures, preparing for the days ahead, laying down the dark canvas around the grass perimeter outside. First, they papered the windows so that in here, when I wake, I can't be sure my eyes are fully open. In the partial light, I make my way through the familiar interior, now suddenly made strange. I count the steps to the kitchen, am careful in passing through doorways, slip my body down the hall without touching anything. I think your life thus far must be like this, all subtle movements in the semi-dark, my skin half illuminated by day, then a shade pulled down at night. I read that this is the week your body takes on pigment, the blood red burrowing beneath fat, beneath skin, becoming closer to the color you will learn to wear in a world that will have to decide whether to love you or fear you for it. This is the truth about where we are as the men work outside, the ladders against our walls like sudden thunder. We ready ourselves to be altered completely. That poem I saved for my current manuscript that I'm working on, and I thought I would read a couple poems from that and then end with a couple poems from my book, Why Can't It Be Tenderness? So from the, I guess I'll start with Why Can't It Be Tenderness? The poem that opens this book is called Ode to the Double L, and it was written after a poem by Araceli Sturmay, who wrote Ode to the Little R, for the rolled R in her first name. And I took that as a poem prompt for myself, and thinking about what it means to be named Michelle, and always having to say with 2 L's, you know, at Starbucks and other places, and how feeling my whole life that the 2 L's were very important, that they had significance. And a lot of what I write about in this book has to do with being mixed race, and being white, and also Malaysian. And so the 2 L's kind of become a metaphor for that in this poem. Twin shorelines at the end of my name, traffickers of white space. You could last on the tongue forever, lolling, longing, an endless drawing out of the little stream between you. Fill my life. I drink from the narrowest canal flowing between 2 countries that half of the time claim me. Double L, bring me back to the in-between, where my breath has always lived without containment, like 2 legs pointing toward the ocean, or these arms reaching into sky. From birth, you have doubled my grief and my wonder, shown me the parallel which can never touch, the way I run alongside my love without entering his true mind. Rivulet of secrets, slim as a eucalyptus leaf, airplane runway of the heart. Double L, let my days always move in 2 directions. Build me a channel into which I can pour this voice. I have another poem in here, kind of about doubling or splitting. It's titled Customs, as in the customs in an airport, and it's about a child going between both parents, going through customs after a long trip, coming back to the US. Customs. At the airport, after a long journey, a mother and father divide like a cell, foreign and domestic, into their respective lines for citizens and non-citizens. The child is small enough to run beneath the rope that skims the top of her skull, splitting her family into parallel routes to the same house. The girl passes from line to line beneath the gaze of the customs officer. No one has caught her yet, going back and forth. She swings like a spider between 2 points, building something nearly invisible. Go to the other side with your father, says the mother. As tall as suitcases, boxes at eye level, the girl becomes a piece of luggage in transit. She has nothing to be confiscated. She doesn't even hold her own passport. The adults slide it across the appropriate counter for an off-center stamp on an unmarked page. Already, she no longer resembles the child's photo, iridescent and cross-hatched by the advanced security features covering her face. Even her name has an expiration date, when someday she is married and will change it. For now, the child belongs to no one and no country. Everything is impermanent. Her loyalties might shift according to a game she makes of jumping over the dark tiles in the airport floor. I'll end with this poem that for now is the title poem of the manuscript I'm working on, which is The Last Sign of the Zodiac. And if you're not familiar with astrology, the last sign is Pisces, which are 2 fish swimming in opposite directions. So kind of in line with the themes I like to obsess over and write about. And so that's kind of the image that I'm working with in this poem too. The last sign of the zodiac. Slipping beneath the surface, I can hear my pulse sounding its beat, a shortwave sonar tracing the perimeter of the tub I can fit into if I bend my knees. It sounds like the heavy revolutions of twin engines on a plane, and I rise as if above the border between two countries where I am an outsider and I am floating above them, unattached. The bath is as hot as I can stand. I place as much distance as I can between myself and the cold that is inevitable, biting at the margin between air and water. When did it happen? My aversion to freeze. At 2 years old, an only child then and forever, I ran into an icy lake in early spring, the winter still draping the landscape with its net of cold. I didn't care for the picnic being set at the edge of land, for the adult world, the human arrangements of halved sandwiches and apple slices. Already, I was teaching myself how to be lonely, that it did not matter what I left behind, so long as I inhabited a body capable of adapting to this element, of feeling untethered from the world. I stepped out into it without gravity or thought, followed my one instinct. But it was not like the pictures of blonde children laughing on the box containing the raft we filled in the backyard with a garden hose. I was not drifting downstream. Mine was a vessel in reverse, choked with water instead of buoyant in it. From inside the boat, I watched the sky, which convincingly moved its clouds so that I could pretend I was going somewhere other than the section of concrete where I was anchored and could be watched from a kitchen window above the sink of dishes. This was in my father's San Francisco and his father's and his and his. I could not tell if it was mine, more mine than my mother's, who arrived over water, though without entering it, from Borneo, which I'd learned was an island. And I felt like that, though I was not of it, or I was half, and I would have to decide was enough. I felt gray as the fog rolling over me, indistinct, the seagulls making their trajectories based on either hunger or sleep. When I was born, they had to cut me out. I was a fish curled in a bucket. And when I was lifted out, I arched in the foreign air, and I would keep opening my mouth for the rest of my life. Each time I wade into the Pacific, I imagine myself touching the land where the other half of my family lives, though I do not know whether it is power I receive or send out, or if it will ever return to me, though I know it is water that laces everything together. Thank you.